2.
Greetings.
Hello.
My greetings. Well met. Greetings, traveler. Greetings, friend.
The pleasure is mine.
Hello and welcome to... This is a bonus episode. That's weird. Hello and welcome to our 23rd Discord Discussions bonus episode of Concede instead of our normal episode this week because it's New Year's and nothing happened this past week, so we're doing our bonus episode at the same time slot we do in a regular episode. Except it's Wednesday, not Thursday. Nothing is normal. I am your host, Ridiculous Hat, from Gadsden, New York. That's normal. From Karazhan, California, we have Botticus.
When do we get the 35 revealed cards? Does that start next week, or are they just gonna give them to us and then we find out on the day they get released?
No idea. It's either next week or the week after when the set comes out, or some other time. No one knows. But nothing happened yet.
We know when it comes out?
We have theories. January 19th, because the login bonuses are good until January 18th.
Oh, right.
Yeah. We talked about that. Yeah. And also, for listeners, if you don't know who's talking, that's Edelweiss from Undercity, Pennsylvania. How you doing, Edelweiss?
I'm doing all right. How about you, Hat?
Hanging in there. And, yeah, it's our last show of 2020. I think I can speak for all of us when I can say good riddance. And Concede supported in large part by all of you, the listener. If you'd like to find out how you can support us, receive rewards in return, head to patreon.com/Concede. Big thanks to Steven C. as our newest patron. You can also leave an iTunes review totally for free. Really helps other people find the show. We read them on our bonus episodes. That's this. And we have 8 new reviews to read at the end of this show. Holy crap, that's awesome. Thank you so much, everyone that's gone out of their way to review. It's great. It's great, and you're great. So, gosh, are we doing Life and Ladder? Is that what we're doing? We don't normally do them during these episodes, but nothing's normal today. Life and Ladder, let's go. Edelweiss, how you doing?
Doing all right, yeah. Enjoying our cat. It's very, very cute. Appreciate having her around. My nice nocturnal companion. And I have peppermint hot chocolate, which is very tasty.
Ooh. So. That sounds delicious.
On Ladder, been doing a lot of rogue coachings, and today I did one with a rogue deck that is super fun for me. So remember how we talked about how I don't know if there's like aggro decks good enough? Well, stealth rogue is still a thing. It's a very, very good thing, as it happens. Lots of card draw, etc. So I took a list that was top 100 on EU Stealth Rogue with a Plague of Madness for the Shamans. Like, that's your weapon hate, basically. That has been delightful. We did a coaching session with, it was myself and Joaquin, and we did not drop a single game for an hour of play. And they're fast games. So definitely recommend that list.
Yeah, definitely put that in the show notes so people can find it and also tweet it because people like it when you tweet deck lists. But I'm not surprised that we didn't know about it. It had stealth.
True.
How could we know about it? Botticus, outside of the last 30 seconds, how's your Life and Ladder?
Things are fine. Been playing a bit more World of Warcraft. They actually did you know that they added I don't know if you call it a mode in World of Warcraft, but they added
a roguelike.
The Slay the Spire.
Yes.
Yeah, roguelike.
I am aware of Torghast, and I have avoided playing Torghast because I would like it.
It's interesting. I don't know that you would like it because it has some interesting mechanics, like one where you're. So I've been playing a lot of Priest, and there's one of the rewards you get is like whenever you take damage, it will eventually convert the damage you take into like a bunch of damage for one of your spells, and so literally one of the runs I just sat there and just took a bunch of damage and just kept healing myself until the number got large enough to just one shot the bosses. and then you sit there and you wait for a really long time till you take a bunch of damage, and then you just keep one-shotting bosses. And I don't know if that's the intent for that mechanic. It's a lot of fun the first couple times, but it's definitely not. It doesn't have the same. I don't know that it'll have the same endless replayability that like a Slay the Spire or something like that has. But I've been enjoying it. On the Hearthstone side, been mostly doing Battlegrounds. Actually had like a few solid wins in a row, and followed up by started getting to the point where I'm trying to play other heroes to get like achievements and stuff, and learning worse heroes is hard. Yeah, like Silas Darkmoon, don't know how to play that one. I mean,
It's a weird one.
It's like you get a lot for getting the tickets, but then you have to buy these crappy minions, and so it's like you probably just have to ignore it on for the most part, and then just get some value sometimes. But it's hard, and I'm just still. It's really hard to learn comps that are not like I have zero idea how to play pirates. Like absolute. Every time I get a board of pirates, I'm just like, this is a lot of attack stats and not a lot of defense stats, and then my board gets wrecked. So I can play elementals, I can play dragons, and I can kind of play menagerie. But anything outside of that is just baffling to me. I don't really know how to put together other comps. So trying to kind of learn that a bit, and haven't been playing a ton of ladder.
Yeah, makes sense. BGs I think are the best game mode right now. At least I'm enjoying them a lot. I think the Dark Moon Fair spells really added a layer of depth that I wasn't expecting, and boy, am I terrible at this game mode. I am really,
Oh man,
really
did you
bad.
see? I got a pretzel mustard.
Ooh,
I
nice.
finally
me
got
too.
pretzel mustard. That was really sweet.
What was that one for again?
That's you win every round, or
You don't.
no, you don't
Yeah,
lose any
you don't
rounds.
lose a single. You don't lose a single round.
Yeah.
And I did it with Zephyrus, I think. Which
Yeah.
I like that hero now that it costs 3 instead of 4. That hero is not even it's not even one of like the top tier heroes, but it's a lot of fun because you just get goldens, and getting goldens is entertaining.
Yeah. I have not gotten a spicy or regular pretzel mustard. I've lost a lot of rounds. I'm working on. It's more. It's like I'm having fun with the mode, and I know there are ways to play better, but I'm not giving it my full attention when I'm playing it. It's an iPad couch mode, and I'm really enjoying that. And it's just like fun and goofy, but also I can definitely see better players are winning more by doing different things than I'm doing. It also seems
Yeah,
like yeah.
it's a play while eating dinner mode for me.
Yeah.
Because I only have to have one hand on the mouse. I don't have to like press any buttons, and I can just kind of relax and eat my food slower and think through stuff instead of rushing both things.
Yeah. Something
To
like
me,
that.
it's a lay down on the couch with an iPad mode.
It's perfect for couch tableting at a non-competitive level, which is where I am.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'm enjoying it a ton, and it's the damage amounts are still pretty high, but it seems like a faster leveling meta, which means there are times where you can really like just high roll and get good fives, or you can get 3 different carries like I do, and then not sell any of them, and then not have a comp, and then die. That's kind of what I've been doing. Of like, I'll die with a Bran, a Rivendare, and a Lightfang. I'm like, but wait until I get my trap card, and then I die.
Yeah, the Bran Lightfang comps are just like there's not enough board space for this. I shouldn't be
Yeah,
doing this. I have to decide, but I always get tempted. I
yeah,
feel like Bran is now back in the mode where it's mostly a trap, but sometimes it just goes off. It's like, yeah.
yeah. It's it depends if there are Murlocs or if you are good at Khadgar or both.
I haven't been able to put together a Khadgar comp. I actually
Well, it's not a
had
comp. It's a pivot.
yeah, I had the Khadgar pivot ready, and then I looked at. Well, I knew this, but there were no Murlocs and no beasts, so you can't do the pivot when you have that. But I did have a golden Khadgar, and I was like, this is not as useful as it should be.
Yeah, I did that yesterday. Got a golden Khadgar, and I was like, you know what goes well with this? I know you're thinking tokens. No, not tokens. Put Harvest Golem third. Look at all these 2-1s. And then I lost because Harvest Golem is not really a great payoff here.
Oh,
Yes.
Khadgar is good with Lich King.
Yes. Yep. And Bronze Warden, but everything's good with Bronze Warden. And yeah, there is the goofy Pirate Exodia comp. I haven't gotten that either. Anyways, I'm having fun with that. Both Standard and Wild Ladder are they have questionable replayability at the moment. When I'm playing Standard, if I'm playing Rogue, I have fun, except it's all Rogue mirrors, and then when I'm playing not Rogue, I keep losing to Rogue, except when I play Shaman, and then I lose to mirrors, and boy, Evolved Shaman mirrors are subpar. Not great. Not a huge fan. So yeah, I'm cooling on Standard quite a bit right now. Haven't played a lot of Wild, but still jamming here and there, just to make sure I stay fresh for THL. Had a good day in that one, both my matches today. And had a really great Slay the Spire run yesterday. I was doing the daily climb, and I was the Watcher, except it's the Watcher with red cards. And then I got an Act 1 Dead Branch, and I'm like, all right, we're Exhaust deck. And I never found a Corruption, but Corruption found me sometimes. And it's very fun. I don't know. Hades is still great. Been playing a little bit of the Pathless, which is a sweet game. It's a good time to be a gamer, and I've been working a little bit. I went to a theater that was open to help them out this past week, so I worked Christmas, and I'm really rusty and out of shape, and I came home and passed out at 8:30. Yeah, going back to work tomorrow morning. It's it's different feel, definitely different. But so far I don't have COVID, so hooray! Yeah, we're all very excited. So we have questions. The format of those, for those of you that haven't normally listened to our bonus episodes, well, they're fun. You should listen to them. We take questions from listeners and people that tweet at us because this show is easy to run when you all make the content for us, and also because we don't have any news to really talk about since the Blizzard offices are closed. So we're gonna chat for the end of the year and engage with the best part of the show, which is the community. So let's go. Question number 1 from
Wait. Hold up. I'm sorry. Botticus, is this something that you specifically wanted to show on stream, or did you just get a blanket because you're cold?
I wanted a blanket on my legs.
Temperature in California right now?
I mean, it's not as cold as it is other places, but it's like 54.
Okay.
That's cold. That's cold for here.
I feel
it's
that
54
I need
in your apartment?
I mean, I don't have the heater going.
I think I need to intervene on behalf of this podcast. We spend entirely too much time talking about how warm it is in California. Can we take a month off of that topic? We talk about it a lot.
All right. Fair enough.
It's okay. He's wearing long sleeves. He has a blanket. It's fine. But it comes up a surprising amount. So, first question from Austin Powers. I assume it's a different Austin Powers. Conway6288 on Twitter. Thoughts on a rotating basic set for each month can be old cards that have rotated out, similar to League of Legends 10 free champions to everyone. Think it would spice everything up a lot. I'll go first. I don't mind the idea of a rotating basic set even at some interval, but every single month, this game is hard to keep up with. And there have been a few times where there have been a lot of nerfs or new cards that have come out or whatever. I would want a different kind of cadence for this. Every year would be fine, maybe changed up halfway through a year. But with the new mini sets coming, I think you don't want too much change overall, just because it gets kind of dizzying if things keep changing over and over again and metas can't naturally stabilize or evolve. I shouldn't have said evolve, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't know how rotating basic set compares to 10 free champions, but it gave me the idea, what if there was a rotating set of free legendary cards that players got every month or so? That'd be kind of neat for free to play players to be able to play with legendary cards they don't usually get, and would probably get some of them to craft legendary cards. It seems like a seems like a winning situation, because I mean that's what League of Legends does, is they have the 10 free champions, but if you already own the champion, it doesn't affect anything, right? But you get to play with the champion for a bit, and then if you like it, then you go buy it, or in this case, you would go and craft it. So that could be an interesting idea. I don't really know how you would rotate the basic set, but I mean, we've talked about rotating the basic and classic set before, and I think I just don't know how that's going to happen. I don't they've done crazier things, so maybe it's in the works, but I don't know how that's going to work. I think what's probably going to happen is they're just going to revamp the classic and basic set like they've done with some of the classes, and just completely redo a bunch of the cards for other classes to bring everything more in line with each other.
Yeah, when I think of a rotating basic classic, I don't think of each month. I think of more as a for the year thing. So we know that they plan out expansions in advance. You can therefore think, okay, we're going to be designing, these kinds of cards, right? So for that year, we will have, such and such cards in basic classic because they will synergize well, that kind of thing. And it would, I think it would be too disruptive to have your basic building blocks be changing every month, particularly for players that don't play as much. But if it's every year, then you get to bring back some old favorites. Maybe there's some that generally stick around all the time, but you can sort of make calls based on the 3 sets that you're doing for that year. That would be how I sort of more envision a rotating classic basic.
Yeah, like if, for example, this year when they printed Rogue Secrets, they can put Sudden Betrayal in classic or basic or whatever for the year, right? Something along those lines where you add a synergy piece from a previous set that makes sense given the new cards. I don't know. Would be interesting. It's just a question of too much change is as disruptive as too little. So it's just making sure that there's a really steady cadence to that. But yeah. Cool. Speaking of classic, I'm gonna take this next one, Edelweiss.
Yeah, so what direction do you want to see Hunter go as a class? Would you add a new archetype or enhance an existing one? And this is one from Anton Fairherm. So I'm a Hunter fan for sure. I think when I first got into the game, I was a little frustrated about Phase Hunter, but that's just because it was too good. That was Undertaker Hunter times.
Yeah,
but
they should have nerfed that.
But I've since had a sort of appreciation for the class and kind of the various ways you've got sort of mid-range, or there was really interesting stuff with the Cube Hunter. It's a pretty interesting class to me because while sometimes it is just low to the ground, leverage the hero power to close out the game, there's been a lot of different things we've done with it, despite it having such a linear go face kind of hero power. In terms of a direction, I honestly would love to kind of go back to that mid-range Hunter time, right? When Savannah Highmane was we joked it was the legendary of Hunter because it was just in all the Hunter decks. To some extent, that might not be as much about designing Hunter as designing other cards around the Hunter. I think Savannah Highmane has just been sort of outclassed by a lot of the cards we have now. But I sort of like Hunter as that mid-range kind of class, because usually you then have the flexibility to go into, you can have Face Hunter, but you've also got the mid-range staple. The secret stuff is interesting, but yeah, I kind of would like to see more of a curve out beast deck with high mains and stuff again.
I really liked Death Rattle Hunter when it was Cube Hunter minus Deathstalker Rexar. Everything about that deck was sweet, and then there was Deathstalker Rexar.
Yeah.
I actually liked Deathstalker Rexar when it was just like 2 damage to all their stuff, and then if you ignore the hero power was like, oh, well, this is less interesting, but Hunter having that kind of control element of being able to handle a wide board once was kind of cool. But yeah, I actually like Death Rattle Hunter, even though it's never, other than Cube Hunter, I don't think it's ever really been a thing, right? They
was
have
Bomb
Death Rattle
Hunter.
cards. Oh yeah, that was sweet.
Yeah, that deck was a little bit linear, but all of these decks were enjoyable for a period of time. I actually think that Hunter is the example of how to design a boring class in an interesting way over the past couple years. Because the hero power drives it in a very particular direction. If you deal damage to face, the hero power is good, and if you don't, the hero power is bad. And so deal damage to face and then use your hero power. That's kind of what Hunter has done for a long, long time. And then the mid-range is just do that, but press the button less and play a slightly higher curve, usually after they nerfed a bunch of face Hunter cards each time. Over the past few years, Spell Hunter, I think, was really interesting with Rock Dalar. I think that was a cool deck. It was helped a lot by the fact that Emerald Spellstone was super broken. I really liked Cube Hunter, even though it also did some pretty goofy things. There was the Master's Call Hunter, with you also got to play Zul Jin and Unleash the Beast. There's been various flavors of Highlander Hunter, which ended up being pretty good multiple times. They have a lot of really interesting and cool cards and have made the class more than just a face deck a bunch of times, even though the innate cards want to be a face deck. And in addition, I think the basic and classic set is the gold standard. The cards are good, not too good. They're usually playable, but you don't always play the same ones. You don't always play them in the same amounts. You don't always play them together. I really like how they've designed it, and I would keep most of them the same, except I'm glad they nerfed Hunter's Mark twice, and I would probably get rid of it. I would probably get rid of Unleash the Hounds, because it's too much charge. But where the Hunter Basic and Classic set is showing its age a bit, and why Highman is bad, is that all of Classic and Basic has become obsolete with the addition of Rush to the game. When you add Rush to the game, Hearthstone becomes a different game, and all the Basic and Classic cards were built around that not being a thing, and I don't think that Rush is innately bad, but the older cards don't function well in a world where attacking is something that happens right away, and so a lot of them need changes. Highmane became bad as soon as Rush became good. Like, it completely changed as soon as that mechanic was introduced to the game. So, because of that, I think that all of Classic needs a facelift, and Blizzard is very clearly on board with that. But where I want to see Hunter go, I don't think that Blizzard needs any help with making Hunter interesting despite the hero power being so straightforward, because they've done such a great job of it so many times over the past few years.
Yeah, it feels like Hunter's been consistently a good class, but it gets played so infrequently that it never feels broken. Except other than, I think the most broken Hunter was definitely Undertaker Hunter, and then this next most was what, Death Rattle Hunter, when it was the majority of the meta.
Master's Call, I think.
They
They
nerfed Emerald
Master's Call?
Spellstone, right? They did nerf Emerald Spellstone.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was the most broken, but it was really, really good. They did just nerf Highlander Hunter. I don't know, the thing about Hunter is, historically, they've nerfed until Hunter is the best deck and then left it there because everyone's kind of cool with it. So I can't really think of a time outside of Undertaker where Hunter actually needed the nerf and was the thing that got hit, because they also didn't really nerf Deathstalker Rexar when Specialist came out. They were just like, this is just going to be how it is. I don't know. It's hard to say when Hunter, outside of the old days, Buzzard Unleashed both being a 2-mana was super broken. Old Face Hunter was super broken. Yeah.
And one thing I'd like to mention as well is that although I would like to see some of the mid-range hunter-y kind of things come back, part of what is interesting to me about the class is all the new stuff they try with it. and like the directions they push it, and it still ends up kind of working. I think that's because it has better classic basic stuff to work with than Shaman does, right? Shaman gets pushed in all these directions and it kind of is either insane or terrible because it doesn't have a good core. But Hunter actually has a good core, and so we've seen all these different archetypes. There's been the Mech Hunter, there's been the All Beast Hunter with Master's Call, there's been All Spell Hunter, which no one thought would ever work, but was totally reasonable. There was the the cube deck and the Undertaker Death Rattle one. So they've gone all kinds of different directions with it, and it could be nice just to have a sort of cycling through some of these, and in between they'll come up with new interesting things. Like the Quest Hunter was a very different kind of deck. It was kind of like a weird sort of combo deck almost, where you were just trying to complete your quest and then you just keep building a board, and it was like Force Roar, where it wasn't exactly a combo, but you had this sort of combo finish in Leroy Unleash the Hounds. So I would like to see some of these things that they've done come back in a new way with Hunter, but I also kind of just trust them to come up with interesting things. I think if it was just one particular thing, we would just get bored of it really quickly. As we kind of saw with Highlander Hunter, honestly.
Except no one got bored of it because we all agreed to just slowly stop playing it even though the win rate was good. We're just like, alright, Highlander Hunter and Bomb Warrior, they're good, we're just gonna chill and do something else. And everyone's like, alright, we can get behind this, we can do this. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I like that question though. I like talking about I think it's a class that probably doesn't get talked about enough. All right. Our next question is from Dan Dimmitt. I get nervous about losing stars. Sometimes I make a science project by testing 5 to 8 different versions of a deck archetype, so losing is just a part of the process. Do you think that's a good idea, or should I try 2 to 3 different archetypes at a time for less boredom? So in terms of good idea, bad idea, I don't know that I can fully answer this question without knowing how you enjoy the game. I keep coming back to this when questions like this get asked, but it's super important, because if you enjoy the science project idea where you make a bunch of different versions of a deck, and that's the way you enjoy the game, is by the process of trying to improve a deck and make it better, then by all means go for it. But if you're asking in terms of is it going to improve your win rate, most likely not. Something we preach on the show a lot is, if you're looking to win more, you pick a deck, you stick with it, and you play that deck over and over until you know all the ins and outs of it, and you will win more. Because most people do a thing, which is try 5 to 8 different versions of a deck and don't ever fully learn a deck, or they try 5 to 8 different archetypes, just completely different decks. I'm looking at Hat. Yeah, and so having a intimate familiarity with the deck will really improve your win rate if that's your goal. But a lot of people, I think, look at the game and think their goal is to win as much as they can, and I don't know that that's the best way to be looking at a game that you're investing time into, because I think the best way to invest your time is to make it enjoyable, because if it's enjoyable, also you'll learn more and you'll do better at the game. So I would say just if you think that you're not enjoying the game because you try all these different archetypes and you say it's part of the process as a negative thing, then you probably want to switch up that mindset a bit and kind of figure out what you're trying to get out of the game.
Yeah, I would say it's fine to do these things as long as when you go into a session of playing some Hearthstone, you know what your goal is for that session. So if you start out saying, okay, I'm nervous about losing stars, I want to climb right now, then I would say stick with one archetype, and maybe you make a card swap if like you're struggling and you need an edge against something that seems prevalent. But for the most part, sticking with one deck is going to serve you better. But if you hit a ranked floor, that's your opportunity to experiment, right? I definitely, as soon as they introduced ranked floors, I remember all the time like, okay, I'm at the rank 5 floor, so I'm just gonna mess around for a while and try a whole bunch of different stuff because you know that you can't fall below that place. So that's why you see a lot of wackier decks around there much of the time, is because it's a place for experimentation.
Only thing I'll add to what my very intelligent co-hosts have to say is you say making it so losing is just part of the process. Good news! Losing is part of the process anyway! Because playing a game where there are 2 players means one of them has to lose every single game unless you tie, and that doesn't come up very much. So, enjoying the game how you want to enjoy it? Absolutely. And making sure you're clear on your goals? Absolutely. But you gotta make peace with losing without an excuse, because it's gonna happen even if you're trying your best and playing as hard as you can. No matter what, there's no world in which you are in the zone all the time and you don't lose. Even at your maximum effort, playing the best you possibly can, you will lose a bunch of the time. So make peace with that regardless of what your goal is, and view each game, even when you're playing a tier 1 deck that you have a ton of experience with, as figuring out what you could have done better that game or what choices were available to you. And sometimes, here's the kicker, there are no choices that will be available to you that will change the outcome of a loss. None. There might be choices you could have made differently, but none of them will lead to a win. That game was meant to be a loss. And that's okay too, because sometimes they get the Edwin. Sometimes they get the Bloom Knuckles. Sometimes they don't even have a nut draw and they just beat you because their draw was better than your draw, and your choices were not enough to sway that game. And making peace with that, also a very important part of the process. So I'm glad you're thinking about this. I'm glad you're aware of your hangups. And this is a very difficult thing to do. It's not the sort of thing where you can just be like, okay, I'm fine with losing now. That's not how that works for sure. Trust me. Trust all of us. And none of us are really great at going on losing streaks. I had one a few days ago where my brain was saying you should stop playing, and then my finger said click play. So it's hard, but yeah, losing is a thing that's going to happen, and making peace with that as much as possible is the way to go.
So that takes us to our next question from Absolcold. In StarCraft 2, you get a separate MMR for each of the 3 different races and random. Would something like that ever work for Hearthstone and its 10 classes? Also merging somewhat with how Diablo has separate leaderboards for the different classes. I would say it's possible, but they're not going to do it. 10 classes is a lot to do that for. The only place that I've seen something kind of like this before in card games was, I believe, Gwent had a sort of leaderboard system for the different factions, and actually you needed a certain level, like skill level, with multiple factions to be able to qualify for certain high level events. It's been a minute, so I might be misremembering some of that information.
No, it's Pro Ladder, and Pro Ladder is awesome, or was.
Yeah, it's
gone now.
Yeah, it was really cool when I was playing Gwent. Early Gwent was better, but that's another topic. So it's definitely doable, but the thing with Gwent is there were only 5 factions. So that would be a lot harder to implement with the 10 that Hearthstone has to deal with, and particularly if they want to add any more classes. So maybe it's something Runeterra might consider, because they've got, but there's multi-color stuff in there, so I'm not sure we'll see that kind of system for another card game for a while.
Yeah, like
I think you could add it to the game. I just don't know how much value it adds to Hearthstone. It's one of those things where you could do it. And then it'd be interesting for some people. I think it's almost like it's kind of like a mini achievement type thing, whereas some people just have really high MMR with like Mage or something in the current format. But I don't know if it adds enough to the game where you would want to add something like this. So It's like, yeah, you could put this in, but I don't know what need it necessarily fills in the game that makes it worth the amount of time and effort it would take to add it.
It would make legend ranks really weird because those are based on MMR. I have no idea how that would work. And if there was a class that you hadn't played and you decided to pick it up as a really strong player, you would speed bump a lot of people. And that I would want to avoid because you could just not play a certain class for a while and then pick it up later in your Hearthstone career and just have a major skill mismatch, and that would create feels bad experience. So I thought about this for a while. I think that there's some concept here. There's some depth to looking into what does this mean and tweaking MMR based on specific performance on things you're comfortable with versus things you're not as comfortable with. But I don't know how it would be implemented without completely screwing up legend ranks and without creating the opportunity for speed bumps. But there's something there.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I believe the way it worked in Gwent was you were on a regular ladder for most of it. And then once you hit legend, then you played in the pro ladder. And that's where you had your class or your faction specific MMR stuff.
It was like 25 games with 4 different factions, and then your average win rate overall determined your leadership placement, something like that. I don't know exactly because I wasn't playing Gwent at the time, but I remember looking at it and being like, "That's pretty cool." Yeah, I think there's opportunity for Hearthstone to do a more complex ladder system if they want, though the current system is surprisingly complex anyways. You just can't really explain it all that well. But I think there's some opportunity for something here. All right, cool question. Thanks, Absicold. Next question from, we know this person, from Appa. What are y'all's top 3 favorite decks of all time and why? Well, I answered this on my Twitter relatively recently, and so I can cheat and go first. The decks that I picked here, Ungora Burn Mage is my number 1. Small Time Buccaneer Miracle Rogue is number 2. And my number 3 is either Shield Maiden Control Warrior or Dark Peddler Zoo. Both are excellent. Those would be my 3 and 4. I'm not sure which one would be my third, but I'm cheating and listing both of them. I would lean... Control Warrior was my first love, but Zoo was the first deck that I actually won a lot with, so I'm probably going to lean towards the Zoo, because Old Dark Peddler before the Discover nerf was one of my favorite cards ever. So great. Such a great card. What about you, Edelweiss?
So I'm not positive if these are like my absolute favorites because I don't know, memory's hard. But the ones that certainly stick out for me over time. Number 1 is going to be Madame Goya Shaman. That was just a great time. I watched Asmo play that deck so much, and then I like had to play it myself, and it was just so different from anything I had tried before. And this was in the time of Pirate Warrior, so it was kind of insane to attempt for those that weren't playing at this time.
Yes,
Madame
that's
Goya
the
was,
reason why it was insane to attempt. It was the Pirate
well,
Warriors, not the deck's core concept.
It was tough to beat them, but the core concept was you had this card, a legendary Madame Goya, that would swap a minion you had in play with one that was in your deck. So it was basically recruit before we really had recruit. And as Shaman, what you would do is you would hero power, and then you would play Madame Goya to swap it with a minion from your deck. And all your minions were very chunky. So you had Earth Elementals were like on the cheapest end as your big taunts. And then you had Yasharaj, the original, which would recruit a minion from your deck. So hitting that was just nuts because you got to pull out something else. And then there were some other big minions I don't exactly remember. But that was, at that time, you could very early get out some insanely large stuff. And against Pirate Warrior, the game plan was you would stick an Earth Elemental and do something like Ancestral Spirit it, so it would have Death Rattle resummon itself, and they just wouldn't be able to punch through all the taunt.
Did you play Sagoth the Slitherer?
I don't think so, actually. Maybe. It's a possibility. I'm sure Ragnaros was in there, right?
Yeah, probably.
But besides that, I think my follow-ups would be Gunther Mage. Maybe that's the same deck you were talking about, Hatley and
It
Goro
is.
Burn Mage.
Yep.
Yeah. That's just a solid deck. You were a little bit of a Mana Worm deck, a little bit of a Freeze Mage deck. It was kind of like walking that line in between. And my third one, I had it. It was right there in my head, and now I can't remember. But you want to go, and we'll see if I can remember this.
All right, mine are pretty easy. Number 1, 4-mana Leroy Miracle Rogue.
Ugh.
Made me fall in love with Rogue as my favorite class of all time. Number 2 would definitely be Dragon Combo Priest, which is the highest ladder finish I've ever gotten, I think, which is top 100. And then I'm calling it half Nerf Zoo, which is a Zoo Warlock deck when Undertaker was legal, where since then, I believe it's like 16 of the cards have either been nerfed or Hall of Famed. And all those cards were super broken, and it was the first deck I ever hit Legend with. And yeah, that was back with 1-mana 2/1 Abusive Sergeant, 2/1 Leper Gnome, 3/2 Knife Juggler, 0-mana Power Overwhelming.
No, it would have been
Right?
0-mana Soulfire.
No,
but I think
0-mana
Soulfire
Soulfire.
Soulfire was still 0
And
back then.
then-
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Power Overwhelming got rotated eventually.
Yeah.
It even had Arcane Golem in there.
A 4/2
Believe it or not,
charge.
that card,
4/2
that
charge.
card used to be playable.
Card used to be
yeah.
evil.
Yeah, it was nice and evil. But yeah, so those would be my top 3.
Okay, I remember what I was gonna say, and I have since also remembered other cool decks. But the one I was gonna say was kind of specific to the time where it was created. So Reyes had made this rogue deck with Kaliseth, and it was kind of before everyone realized that Kaliseth was busted. So it was an elemental rogue deck with Kaliseth. And I actually brought it to some events and stuff. It was super wacky, lots of fun. Obviously, you still had like the Kaliseth Shadow Step potential. Eventually, we started going more in on like the pirates and stuff, and didn't really worry about the elementals. But for a brief time before Kaliseth just started going in like any aggressive or like tempo based thing with patches and things. That was a lot of fun.
This is a curve rogue. I found the list.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Blaze Callers, 7-mana 6/6. If you played an elemental last turn, deal 5. Pretty solid. You had played Shadowcaster, which meant it was really trying to extract value. And you got a Shadowcaster, that Fire Plume Phoenix, so you want to deal an extra 2 damage. You got to do that. Yeah. This is definitely a prototype.
Did it play Igneous Elemental?
No.
Too?
No.
No, we didn't go that deep.
We have standards.
That was just Quest Rogue.
No, yeah, we did
Elemental
play.
Quest Rogue was nice.
Yeah, we did play Tark Reaper. Serenite Chain Gang was in here, of course. Yeah, a lot of fun cards. The deck eventually got better by lowering the curve quite a bit, to the surprise of probably no one. Yeah. All right. Next question, Botticus, go ahead and lead us off in our intro into the tournament questions.
All right, so Ermel asks a bunch of great questions here. The first one of this little series we have regarding tournaments is, does Hearthstone need a competitive scene? Maybe the whole look on the game changes, all the negativity about RNG lessens, that'll never happen, if there is nothing like a Pro Tour. So does Hearthstone need a competitive scene? I am of the opinion... Hearthstone doesn't need. I don't know that it really needs anything, especially not a competitive scene. But I don't think that that means that the competitive scene doesn't add value to Hearthstone. I think you could definitely still make Hearthstone without it, but I think there is a large portion of people that it means a lot to. And also, I think it reaches farther than just the people who interact with it. I think it definitely adds value and is worth having. It's just, to what scale does it need to be? I think that's going to be an ever-changing, constant thing that they have to evaluate every year, and it's probably going to change every year. And who knows where it will end up? But I would say it's worth having, though it doesn't need it per se.
Hat, why don't you go next? Because I have some feelings on this one.
Yeah. Bodicus said 90% of what I wanted to say. Yeah, the negative about RNG is never going to lessen. If you are hoping for a world where people are less negative about the RNG in the game, make peace with that now, because that's not an eventuality that will happen. Need is a strong word. I think it is in Hearthstone's best interest to have a competitive scene of some sort. Much like Bodicus said, some people solely play to see their name on a leaderboard, and having content based around really good players playing each other is a good thing to have, and it is worth the very small investment they are currently making. Could Hearthstone exist without any of this content? Maybe, but the top end of the game would wither in a pretty major way, and I think that it would change the landscape of Hearthstone in a negative way. So I don't think it needs much of a competitive outlet, but it needs a leaderboard, and it needs tournaments where people play on camera, and it needs something that people can grind for, even though it's not a lifestyle that people can currently make a living on without producing their own content.
So for me, it, as you said, need is a strong word, and it kind of depends on what you mean by that. One way you could look at, does Hearthstone need esports, is, does it need it for like the game to continue on and make money and all that? And to that, I would actually say no, I don't think so. I think a lot of money from Hearthstone is made off of the people who either are just streaming and like not necessarily like pros in a sense like that, but people like Brian Kibler, Ali Straza, just like content creators, and particularly with the addition of Battlegrounds, which people can play in other ways. Like, people are going to be playing the game regardless of whether or not esports exist. There will be a small group of people that are very loud that would be upset if we lost Hearthstone esports, and who already have been frustrated with kind of the system so far. But I think in terms of, from the point of view of the company, like, the game is going to continue to exist and have a player base and make money whether or not there's esports. Now, does Hearthstone need esports when it comes to overall Twitch viewership? I think the Twitch viewership is substantially better when we have esports. And this was, I'm going to bring up
YouTube.
Yeah. So this is the thing, and they talk about this in Brian Kibler and Frodan's sort of year in review, how Hearthstone was actually growing before that YouTube deal went through. It was growing a lot on Twitch, and people kind of don't realize how you can have folks that are just like casual Hearthstone players. They watch Hearthstone streamers and they watch them on Twitch, and then they go over and they see, oh, hey, there's a Play Hearthstone tournament going on. Let me watch the official Play Hearthstone broadcast. And then that can kind of transition some people into being Hearthstone esports viewers. And so that's how we were starting to get some growth on that front in terms of viewership. I think we have such low viewership for HS esports right now because of the YouTube switch, unfortunately. And I hope that doesn't end up in them cutting HS esports, because as we've talked before, HS Esports is basically marketing for the game right now, and maybe that's sort of all it'll ever be. But I think it is a net positive to have esports around, because you'll have more people watching the game and seeing the highest level of play and all that. So I think it, again, is like how you interpret, does the game need esports? I think it doesn't need it to exist, but I think it needs it to sort of be the best it can be.
Thumbs up. Good answer. And there will be more chance. There will be another chance for question number 3 here for you to wax philosophically about your vision. But yeah, the people underestimate how big of a deal the YouTube swap was. I underestimated it. Bodicus was right. And it.
Clip that. Somebody clip that.
Okay, I say it multiple times, but you were right. You were just like,
I'm kidding.
But you were just like, I'm not going to go to YouTube and watch it. And I was like, that's silly. And then every time tournament was on, I promptly didn't go to YouTube and watch it. And then when I open a tab, like I'm doing something else, let me just open a tab of something while I'm multitasking, I went to twitch.tv. Because that's, yeah. It's just, it was weird. It feels weird. Question number 2
Man,
from...
What a beautiful thing if they could have just worked together. Like, if we could have just had the live viewing experience of Twitch with the VOD experience. Because remember trying to do VOD work with
Twitch?
With Twitch, or just trying to get YouTube videos of the games that were played. So I remember trying to get videos of Hearthstone games that were played off of YouTube so I could link them in our show notes, and they just would keep getting removed from YouTube because YouTube just has the best, like, they have the best VOD experience, but their live experience sucks. And it's the exact opposite with Twitch. And I just wish I could watch the YouTube VODs and have the live Twitch experience, because it would be so good. And both of them provide such a good experience for both of those things.
And during the year when there were all the tour stops, I think it was 2018, the best source for us to find videos of the games was a shady underground Russian YouTube channel for Hearthstone esports that kept getting suspended because Blizzard was like was issuing takedown notices for all of their videos because they were just trying to get the videos onto YouTube, because there was no Hearthstone esports channel at the time, and a lot of the VODs were just lost except for this one person that was archiving them, and a channel that kept getting shut down. That was the best we could do back then. So now at least the videos are stored and saved and we can get to them easily. But that's when interest in the game is down because it's on a bad platform. Anyways. Question number 2. Would you still play Hearthstone if there weren't esports attached to it? Would there still be a CC podcast? Yes and yes.
Easy answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I barely pay attention to the esports side of Hearthstone, and so I don't see a reason why either of these things would be a no from me. But that being said, also still see the value in having the esports side, because at one point it was the main reason that got me into Hearthstone. So yeah. But yeah, I don't see Concede going anywhere, regardless of what happens to esports next year.
Yeah, it's a little different for me. Esports has been a core part of why I play the game, basically, since I started spending money on it. When I first got into Hearthstone, it was a casual, fun thing I did because it was cheaper than Magic. And then when it became my main game, I got really competitive. And so I think if there were no esports, I would really get into fireside gatherings, because I like to have some level of competition at least. When I first came to Philadelphia, I wasn't really into esports stuff yet, but I was competing at our local firesides, and it was a ton of fun. And sometimes I would make $50 or something. So there's always kind of that draw for me. And I think that comes a bit from doing like Friday Night Magic events as a kid. So I like getting together with people who play the game. I would definitely keep playing if there weren't any esports, but I would have to totally sort of reshape my approach to the game. And, I've never been a ladder grinder just because it feels like too much time for me. And, I like to spend time with my lovely wife. But I would be really sad, but I would still play. I would just play probably a lot less. I might end up in a place where I was sort of playing like just enough to still have things to say about it on the podcast, which isn't really a place that I want to be. I mean, I enjoy other games, but Hearthstone kind of has that magic for me, and I'm like decent enough to compete in it. So I hope we never get to that point.
THL isn't going anywhere, so don't worry. If nothing else, there will be grassroots tournaments, and I will say that if it were not for
That's true.
the grassroots tournament scene over the past few years, I would have also had a very different relationship with Hearthstone, because there were a bunch of times where that was the reason I stayed playing. I've been in THL since Ungoro came out now, so like it's been a long time. And there were some weeks where I really only logged in for my conquest match, but tournament style Hearthstone is the best. Also, we have the listener series. Hooray! So, Edelweiss, question number 3 here.
So, question number 3, still from Ermel, is what would be your basic concept for Hearthstone esports next season? I know you can discuss this for hours, but just like a basic outline. Honestly, the core thing is like it's got to be on Twitch. If what we're wanting is to like grow Hearthstone and viewership, I don't think it can survive on YouTube. And I know there's other factors at play that are kind of limiting that due to the deal they signed with Google. But I feel like Hearthstone was kind of thrown in as a like, oh well, it doesn't really matter. If we're switching Overwatch League and COD, like Hearthstone can make the transition as well. But I think it's just not built for that transition. It's a very different kind of game. So I think it's got to be on Twitch for viewership, and I think there's a healthy balance between the old HCT system where people were flying all over the place and getting sick, and the system we have now where people are playing in all kinds of qualifiers to the point where they're spending like 4 days a week sleeping very little and just like jamming as many qualifiers as possible. The top 8 thing, for like number of top 8s, kind of made it more unhealthy. It was supposed to be like a nice thing, but then because they did it once, they had to keep doing it, and that meant that people would grind just to get top qualification through top 8s rather than winning an event. So what I would like to see is again a hybrid system where you have, say, maybe like one big Blizzard Masters Tour kind of event per expansion, and maybe a 1 or 2 month qualifier season into that, but there's got to be like a 1 month gap in between each of those at least, so we can have third-party tournaments that also matter. So think of it as sort of like majors and minors, where you've got like the really big Hearthstone Master stuff, and then you've also got something that's just like got a decent chunk of prize money behind it that is maybe third-party run, like DreamHack. People love DreamHacks. And some kind of path to Worlds that does not involve being a Grandmaster. Because right now, there is like the path to getting to World Championship is just, it's gated behind like a year of prep work, and it's almost like it just kind of it kills the dream a bit. Part of the allure, I think, of some of the old system was that anyone could have a great year and maybe move on to the world championships. But now that path is so challenging because you've got to go through these qualifiers and then the Masters Tour and then Grandmasters. And there's only a couple seasons of Grandmasters every year. So I would rather have a system where, Worlds is actually something that people can compete in things that build up to qualifying for Worlds again.
Thoughts, Spartacus? Oop. Thoughts, Spartacus?
I don't have a lot of thoughts about this one. Just because I'm not super invested in it, and so giving an outline of a concept for something I'm not as invested in doesn't sound like super useful. Although Lolnenko says in chat talking about BG esports, that I think that is something I hope to see in 2021 for sure. I think that there's a lot of momentum behind it. It feels like there's almost a second coming of Battlegrounds getting popular again, and they've done a really good job, I think, with BGs. One, in just the first time it was ever introduced, it was kind of big, and then it was getting to the point where I was wondering how they were going to make it interesting again, and I think they did a fantastic job with the prize ticket thing that they've done, and it's, I think, pretty well balanced, and they keep adjusting it, and it's a really good game mode. So hopefully they find a way to do it do a at least some form of esports competition version of it, even though it's significantly harder to manage 8-person matches versus 1v1 matches. So yeah, I don't really know for main. I would defer to what Edelweiss was saying for that, but would definitely like to see something for Battlegrounds more so than just invite only tournaments. I think having tournaments that people can qualify for would be preferable, because I think there's a lot of really good Battlegrounds players out there that probably don't get the same recognition as a lot of streamers.
Yep. So I think the structure that we have for the current constructed Masters Tours is not super far off, but I would make a few tweaks. I do think that the thing where the money that from all 6 Masters Tours counts towards a GM spot is silly, because that meant that GMs that made it in the first half of a year could just lose out and then bounce back into GMs in the second half of the year. Get rid of that. Make it that the 3 Masters Tours count towards Grandmasters, and that's it. For those that don't know, the way Grandmasters Invites works, there are 3 Masters Tours, and then the top money earners from each region get invited into Grandmasters, and people get relegated out to make room for them. And then at the end of the next 3 Masters Tours, they look at the entire year's performance. So someone like Worma, who won a bunch of money in the first half of the year, and then got relegated out of Grandmasters because of their earnings in the first half of the year, they got relegated and then reinstituted immediately, and it's not interesting or fair. So get rid of that part. I think keeping 6 Masters Tours is fine. I think they should all be about 2 weeks after releases, 2 weeks after a set release, 2 weeks after a mini set release. So that's roughly the same cadence they have now, but I would time them very specifically. I would have a rule: no nerfs within 2 weeks of the event, or at least 10 days before the event. Just don't do it. Don't patch. Don't nerf within a week and 9 days of that event. I think having it be right after releases makes a lot of sense, keeps things interesting, rewards deck building. I would add a layer of Grandmasters, second tier Grandmasters, right? Mini Masters, whatever you want to call it. People get relegated out of Grandmasters into this and can grind their way into it through some criteria that I haven't thought of yet. Make World 16 player. You have the current existing 6 players from Grandmasters, 2 players from China, 6 players, the top non-Grandmaster finisher from each of the 6 Masters Tours that is not qualified. So if first place is a Grandmaster, then second place makes it whatever. Just go down the list 1 through whatever. If you win a Masters Tour, you should go to Worlds. And so that way you add 6 players that way. And then you add 2 players from the mid-level Grandmasters. 2 players can grind in, become rivals or whatever, become mid-level masters, and then they have a tournament there where it's not just 1 winner per region, it's 1 winner overall, and that winner goes to Worlds. That would make 16. You got your 6 from Grandmasters, 2 from China, 6 from the 6 Masters Tours, 2 from mid-level Masters. 16. Right, and then you just make Worlds a little bit longer, and then Hearthstone.
Actually, that reminds me. You know who has a good system right now? China.
Yes, great system. Awesome system. Also, put Conquest in the client. Put Conquest in the client. You don't need qualifiers if you have an asynchronous ladder in the client, which you should have. Put Conquest in the client. Make it you can get rid of qualifiers entirely. Just play normal Hearthstone with a Conquest match in the client and do it like how Eternal used to do it, where you would play 20 matches over a certain weekend, and based on your win-loss record, then you would be on an in-client leaderboard, and the top X of that leaderboard get placed into a tournament the immediate following weekend with a pre-announced time. You can do that and get rid of qualifiers entirely, but that's a separate thing. You don't need to do that, but they should do that. And finally, Battlegrounds Grandmasters. Why haven't we done this yet? It's really stupid that we haven't done this yet. Just make a Battlegrounds Grandmasters. Even if you don't make Battlegrounds Masters Tours, which you should, just make Battlegrounds Grandmasters and something just so you can have regular BG content. I think about this a lot because people bring up that when you look in the Hearthstone category, the top streamers are all BGs. It is not because Hearthstone is dying. It is because Battlegrounds won an entire genre. Battlegrounds is an incredible auto battler when there were so many clunky, crufty games inside the genre, right? I played a lot of Dota Underlords, and I liked that game a lot. And it was 45-minute games, and it was really difficult and very fidgety placement. And then Hearthstone came along, it's like it's slimmed down in the way of like, oh my god, I lost 50 pounds, I feel so much better because all the bad stuff is just gone. All the stuff that doesn't matter is gone, and you can just play a straightforward game with a lot of skill involved. Really amazing. And it's not that Hearthstone is declining, it's that BG is increasing in popularity because it's the best of a brand new genre, and it's super accessible, and people are crazy for it. So do something that makes people watch that on your channel, Blizzard. Just do that regularly. Now, as Lalenko brings up in chat, picking BG GMs, no idea.
Yeah, we do have to keep in mind, too, that 8-player lobbies is very recent, though.
It is very recent.
Like, they just added that, so while I agree with you, I'm also not super surprised that they haven't been super hard pushing for BG GMs because
it's still in beta. The MMR is completely broken, and and they tried something with the EMEA Masters, and that was like it's a cool event, and the infrastructure is getting there. They need to do it at some point. I don't know if we're ready for it yet, but there should be consistent official BG competitive content because there is an audience for it, and the game mode is incredibly popular. I also don't know why they don't sell more BG cosmetics, but that's neither here nor there. There are a lot of things they can do for not a lot of money. A lot of things they can do for not a lot of money. And even ignoring the Conquest and the client thing, which is completely out of the esports team's control, because they don't do anything with the client development. Just lining up the Masters Tours with card releases and trying to add a mid-level Masters if they can. That does cost money. But adding a round to Worlds and letting people qualify in, I think makes a lot of sense. All right. Edelweiss, you can take this next question. And thank you, Ermel, very much for the esports questions. They were excellent.
Yeah, they really get our juices going. So this next one is from Appa, once again. And he asks, When was the first time you saw a pro player do something that exemplified just how much depth there is in Hearthstone? For me, it's watching Oskaka during his Worlds run in 2015. Watching him backstab his own Thalnos so that he could make a room on a full board for Lotheb, and pinging his own face in the Freeze Mage mirror to try and play around Fireball plus Fatigue Lethal. So we kind of came to the same conclusion. At least Bodicus and I don't know if Hat, you have a different one that sticks out to you. But back in, was this 2018?
I
so.
think, yeah, it was Hunter Race's Worlds. I think it was April 2019.
Yep. But it was the 2018 World Championship.
Correct. That was the last Conquest Worlds when it was the same year they changed it to Globals in November. So yeah, it was 2019.
Right. So Hunter Race.
This also wasn't our first. Appa is asking our first, and it's really hard to think exactly. Yeah, like I don't remember the first time I saw a play and was amazed, but this was the play where it had to be explained to me afterwards why it was such a high level play, and then I realized just how much better Hunter Race was than almost everybody at that time.
Yeah, it's still a little confusing. Gonna let Hat explain it, but basically this play was Hunter Race versus Viper. Hunter Race is on Rogue, Viper is on Zoo, and Hunter Race got a randomly or discovered Hunter secret as the Rogue, and he makes a play that to a normal player they would just play around Explosive Trap and win, but because both of these players are on such a high level, Hunter Race is able to fake out Viper into thinking that the secret is misdirection rather than Explosive Trap. And it gives him, I believe, the full clear off the Explosive Trap. I don't know if Hat, you want to explain it exactly.
Nope, that's it. You got the you got it covered. Hunter Race played really exceptionally well, really well, and I remember seeing a Pelletier tweet about this, which is where we kind of got the idea as to how this was a crazy bluff. He's an esports coach, a professional esports coach. He brought up just in how deep this play was, with how many levels there were, that it's a bluff that only makes sense if your opponent is also a world-class player. So yeah, it's basically he made a bait based on a card that most people would forget existed. It was really clever. Really clever. As for me, there have been a few moments where I've watched and I've been like, I can't believe this game's outcome is the way that it is. A lot of Freeze Mage play back in the day made me think that, like, Freeze Mage was such an incredibly hard deck to play, and the way players navigated into outs was really cool. Like I remember watching Super JJ sweep people with Reno Freeze Mage at Seat Story 5, I think. It was awesome. I remember, Biza, her Alaneth Mage play was really awesome at the Titanar Invitational Esports 2018. VOD is gone because it was on Twitch for 30 days and that was it. But it was a really formative experience where she coined out Alaneth with 7 cards in hand. I'm like, there's no way she wins this game, and she won that game. And I think the play that most recently stands out to me, besides just everything Yarla did over the past weekend, was LF Yu Ying in HET Worlds. I think that was also 2019, where he was against Corrupted Bloods, or no, it was Togwaggle decks, and he used Myra's Unstable Elements to put 10 cards in hand. And the way that he managed his hand size the entire game to never go below 10 cards in hand, so his opponent couldn't switch back the decks with the Togwaggle. It was pretty cool. So he locked his opponent out of Fatigue. I forget the specifics. I remember just watching it and being like, the casters were blown away by it, and I was too. But this is kind of a hard question because we're all like, none of us have really great memories about this sort of thing. I think the exciting thing about Hearthstone esports, but also one of the downsides, is that a lot of these things kind of blur together, especially in the past year. And there can be cool series, and there can be matchups you remember, but remembering specific turns or plays is kind of difficult. It's kind of hard. I remember the feeling of when I was watching certain things, but I can't speak to the exact sequence of events. but I don't know. There are some pro plays that the lines they take, it just I see that they are navigating obstacles that I have not yet seen, sort of thing. You know. All right. We're gonna move on to our quicker hits. We've got a few of them here. To take a look, we've got a question here from Wild9. What is the number one thing you hope to see for Hearthstone in 2021? Put Conquest in the client. If that is not it, then Hearthstone 2.0 client. And I don't think either of those things will happen, so I don't know. Let me play classic unnerfed Hearthstone decks. Let me play like some kind of time capsule Hearthstone so I can play with Blade Flurry again.
They do that every year.
Yeah, okay, leave it in the game. Let me play that. And let me choose the Blade Flurry deck instead of having to queue up and get Cthulhu Warrior. Ugh. What about you, Advice? Number one thing you hope for Hearthstone next year?
I mean, I kind of mentioned a lot of them in the esports section, but I think kind of generally, I want a good classic rework. That's the thing that I know is happening that I'm looking forward to, and I hope it. I have high hopes. Yeah.
Bot?
Auto squelch. I have it. I literally have it on my computer. Put it in the client. Let me use it on mobile. Put it in the client so I don't literally have to have a third-party program do it for me. Just, I'm tired of it. It does not add any value to not have it in the client. Just put it in there. I'm so tired.
Want to go into settings, check that box, and then never worry about it again.
Exactly.
Except my nervous habit will still stay there.
I think, oh man, well, the excuse given for the reason why they don't have it is like people will stop using emotes. No, people will still use emotes because they don't know that you're automatically squelched. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yours is probably the most realistic.
No, it's I think it's literally the least realistic of the three of us. I don't think that they're ever adding auto squelch to the game, and I will happily be wrong. I will be so happy if I'm wrong.
Maybe if we had auto squelch, Orange never would have defriended Borg Control because he wouldn't have seen the emote.
Yeah,
it's true. It's possible. Saving friendships. Hearthstone.
It's one of those things where like it should be a thing you can grow on and become a better person because you can let the emotes not affect you, and you can just be like, it's just, it's not always a bad thing. They're not always being rude to you, but I'm incapable of learning and just put auto squelch in and I'll be happier.
All right. Top 3 best Hearthstone moments. Let's do one for each of us. Can be personal, can be community stuff. This is from Ermal as well. One for each of us. Reverse order. Botticus, go ahead.
I'm going to say for me, it's actually hitting Legend again with Rogue. Have not been super excited to play Rogue until recently. And it just felt good getting back there, feeling like really enjoying the game and playing my favorite class and getting Legend again. Yeah, it just felt good.
Elias?
One each. For me, honestly, it's been watching my brother get more and more competitive. He's like actually pushing for Legend this time around, and it's awesome to see that kind of growth over time. For a while, it was hard for me to even get him into the game, and it's been really great being able to share decks with him. For now, he's mostly focusing on, the really top deck lists, right? So he ground through most of it with the Evolve Shaman, and then was switching over to Rogue a bit, thinking we'll maybe get there with Stealth Rogue after this. Yeah, that's been just a super awesome thing for me, is to be able to co-op some Hearthstone with my brother.
Pretty rad. Boy, there are a lot of positive Hearthstone moments in 2020. There are some that are, there were not that many that I think were negative, but there were some harder times of the year. But overall, I think I'd say it was a really positive year for both Hearthstone, in general, and for us specifically. Like, our relationship growing with Blizzard has been really awesome this year. Like, I was personally featured in Launcher. Our show was featured in Launcher, which was super cool. And then we got Ixar on the show, along with, we had Celestalon on this year. We had Core on, always a pleasure. Alec was on a couple times. We've talked to so many cool people on the show. I think, though, for me, it has to be just there's not really a moment, but the way that people showed up when I started streaming to keep my sanity. And I got furloughed in March and just had 4 months with nothing going on. And I realized after 3 days of collecting super unemployment and not having anything in the calendar, like, I'm going to lose my mind if I stay this way and if I keep waking up at 2 o'clock. So I made a deal. I said I'm going to stream at noon Monday through Friday just as a thing that I can do. And people really showed up and turned out and were really, really supportive. And it was pretty special and made the middle of the year tolerable. And I didn't deserve it, but really appreciated just the level of community engagement there. Felt like everyone was really there for me when I needed it. So that was wonderful. And, there are still good moments left to come with Hearthstone. But 2020 is thankfully over. And hopefully all of our future memories are just as positive. So yeah. Bodicus, why don't you take this next question?
All right, Absacold asks, will we ever get another tribe? Yes. They have. I don't see how they get around not adding another tribe. I have no idea what that tribe will be, but if I had to guess right now, off the top of my head, I'm saying zombies.
I don't know how undead is not in the game already.
Yeah, or undead, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, or Forsaken. They could do if they did Sylvanas expansion or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely a never say never kind of thing. And as long as the plan is for Hearthstone to keep going, eventually they'll have to add a new creature type. If they added a whole new class, I think they can add another tribe besides, I think Elementals was the only one they've added so far, right?
I guess so.
Technically, they added totems because totems was not a tribe, and then they added the tag.
Oh, okay.
Right?
I
think that's true.
It sounds.
I'm not sure.
That sounds plausible, but I can't confirm or deny it. It's if that was a lie that you had just made up, I'd believe you.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, they're gonna add something. I don't know what it is, but they'll add something.
So next we have a question from Stephen Giorgio, obviously trolling us. He asks, who is your favorite Hearthstone game designer and why is it Cora?
When you say trolling us, are you saying that Cora is not your favorite designer?
Well, I mean, of course she's our favorite designer, but she started this show.
That is true.
I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean that she has to be our favorite game designer. It just happens to be that she is.
She's definitely the one that I know the best.
Favorite game designer is a loaded phrase, but Cora's fantastic. But I don't want to stack rank all the game designers because all the game designers that I've interacted with, they all are special and awesome and great. However, Cora is the founder of the show. So she's the best. Yeah. But
it's interesting how he can simultaneously be so nice and also so cruel on Twitter.
Yes. The only reason that Cora wins is because Steven did not get hired. Because I would have liked to see the pawn card game. All right, go ahead and take this next one, Edel.
So this next one is, what is your favorite Zelda game from Lucky Gulch? Obviously Breath of the Wild, right?
That's mine.
That's both of yours. You guys are crazy. I hated that game. Well, hate is a strong word. I did not enjoy that game.
I mean, this is the thing. That game
original-
is so divisive in the genre. It's either your favorite Zelda game or your least favorite Zelda game.
I'll elaborate
Original
after
Zelda golden cartridge.
Nice.
One of my favorite games I've ever played.
Good answer.
Love
Good
that
answer.
game.
Yeah. My answer is Breath of the Wild because I've realized I don't actually like Zelda games, and I don't think Breath of the Wild is a Zelda game, which is why I like it. It's a Grand Theft Auto. Like it's very different from every other Zelda game. I love the art and sound design. I really think it's a beautiful game, and the music in particular is really special. But I don't think Breath of the Wild hits a lot of the Zelda tropes. But I've realized I don't like most of the Zelda tropes. That when I want to play a Zelda game, Link's Awakening was my answer for this for a long time. And then I played the remake, and I was like, I'm not actually enjoying this that much because the part of Zelda games that I like the most is the Metroidvania part. So then I just go and play Metroidvanias. But the overworld side questing and then do a dungeon is not what I want to do. So I've tried a bunch of Zelda games and I get bored about halfway through a bunch of times. Breath of the Wild is the one that held my interest longest, but I think it is the least like an actual typical Zelda game, which is why it's so polarizing.
I think I am in the weird position where I like both just for different reasons. So I got into Zelda with A Link to the Past because my brother had an emulator on our computer, so we just played a bunch of Link to the Past. I never beat it, but I always enjoyed all the puzzles and stuff. And then I got the Game Boy ones because I had a Game Boy Color and then a Game Boy Advance. And I played, I believe it was Oracle of Seasons and Oracle of Ages. So even though I never got to do like the big Zelda games that people remember, I just loved all the puzzles. And we had a Wii, and I borrowed a friend's copy of Twilight Princess. It was part of the same reason I really enjoyed in Final Fantasy X, where you go into the temples and there's this whole like puzzle part of the game, and I was like, oh my god, they threw like Zelda puzzles into a Final Fantasy game. It was amazing. And the part that I'm actually like most disappointed with in Breath of the Wild is that even though there's kind of a ton more puzzles because of all the shrines, they're sort of easy. And like I don't think I really got stuck on too many puzzles in Breath of the Wild. And so,
Oh no, you didn't get stuck. How terrible of a game design decision.
I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying that was part of the thing, was like you'd get stuck, you'd get frustrated, you're like, I can't figure it out. You give it a break, come back a month later, and then it's just like you solve the dungeon. It's like, yes, like I got it, I figured it out. But Breath of the Wild is just like Skyrim light for me, right? It's like open world, but it's less stressful because you don't have to worry about all the RPG elements. It's just how good are you at the combat system, and that's pretty cool. And particularly where you get super powered up and then you go and do one of the challenges where they're like, you're in your underwear, find resources again, play like it was at the beginning. So I love Breath of the Wild. It's a lot of fun. I have the DLC again, and it's been awesome to replay through.
I can't do open world. I need linear gameplay. Give me straightforward linear gameplay. That's so I played a ton of Mario Odyssey and tried to play Breath of the Wild and found myself trying to like look up guides the whole time instead of playing the game, and I was like, what? This is not enjoyable. I'm spending all my time in a guide trying to figure out the next place to go.
Odyssey is great though. Big fan.
Yes, I love that game.
Why don't you take this next question, Botticus?
What is everyone's favorite physical board / card game? Favorite card game, Magic the Gathering. Team drafting.
Oh, I miss that so much. I wouldn't say Magic these days, even though I've spent multiple decades playing it, because The version of myself as a person that played Magic is not a person I particularly like much anymore. I was much younger and way too intellectually competitive, and just it dredges up a lot of old regressive feelings that I don't like. But Magic's still a great game, and 2-on-2 or 3-on-3 team drafting with friends, talking crap the whole time. Oh yeah, oh yeah. $10 never mattered so much. It's not even the $10. It's the smack talking.
Oh no, it's never the $10.
It's the smack talking.
It's always just the. Oh man, the times. Oh, I still remember the time where I got a Pack 3 Craterhoof Behemoth in a deck that was built for Craterhoof Behemoth that did not function without it, and then I promptly went 3-0 and felt so good about it. Oh man! And for those of you who don't play Magic, I'm sorry. It would take too long to explain the to explain that, but man, there's so much fun doing that. And then board game wise, I can't actually think. There's a lot of good board games, but all the ones I'm thinking about are like deck building card games that are like in the same category, I guess.
Dominion, Ascension.
Yeah, those are a lot of fun.
Dominion is my pick.
But are those board games or are those card games?
They're
Because
both.
they're just like deck building.
They're both. Whatever.
All right.
But probably like Dominion and Seven Wonders.
What's the? Is it? I want to say Bejeweled. Is that like?
It's a phone game.
I'm gonna look it up.
No, you're thinking Splendor, maybe?
Splendor.
I never played that, but I've
one.
heard good things.
It's really good.
Yeah, I was very good friends with the local board game shop because oftentimes board games and Magic the Gathering F&M locations coincide. And so I would get all the great like board game recommendations from the shop owners there. And Splendor was one that came up a lot. I'm surprised I haven't gotten it yet. But actually, we've talked about all these kind of card game ones. I think my favorite is Betrayal at House on the Hill. That's a really great one because it's just like, so it's made by Wizards of the Coast, which is why it's the most complicated board game you've ever freaking seen. And it's this kind of almost storytelling like game. So the base version is you're a bunch of characters that go to this haunted house, and it's almost like a procedurally generated dungeon. So every time you're going to go into a room, you flip like a room tile over for that floor, and like that's the room you enter. And you accumulate stuff as you're sort of exploring the house, and stats can get manipulated up or down as you encounter things. But eventually, after you've encountered enough rooms with like the haunt marker, the haunt happens. And usually it's called Betrayal at House on the Hill because usually what that means is one of the people playing becomes the traitor, and they go off into a room and flip to the scenario based on like the haunt relic that triggered things and in what room it was. And there's a whole bunch of different scenarios. They'll go into a different room, read what their objective as the traitor is, and then everyone else reads what their objective as like the remaining sane good people is. And it becomes this like arch enemy situation, like one person versus the rest of the group. And it's just really cool storytelling, like different every time. It's kind of like a mini like one shot D&D session or something. And I have a lot of fun with that. I don't have the regular version. I have the one that is skinned for D&D. Actually, it's Betrayal at Baldur's Gate. And I always have a ton of fun playing that. But it's very much the kind of game where I like to set the mood. I don't like a ton of crosstalk or anything. Dim the lights, read the cards in a spooky voice. It's a lot of fun.
Y'all are getting complicated here. Favorite board game? Scrabble. Love Scrabble.
Oh, I would play Scrabble. And there's 4 of us. Or no, wait, we would need Abba if we wanted to do 4-person Scrabble.
Yeah, because
Can you
they're
imagine me playing Scrabble. I can barely pronounce words.
Fair enough.
Knowing how to say the words or what they mean is irrelevant to Scrabble. The important part is memorizing all the 2-letter words, and everything else is just like...
I was just gonna say that! All the 2-letter words. It's so important.
Yeah. It's super sharky, Bodicus. You might actually like it. It has nothing to do with actually knowing words.
No.
Okay.
Played Scrabble before. Not a fan. Whenever I played words with friends or whatever, you just have to keep putting in different letters until it accepts. Because I don't know, I don't words. Bad, not me. No good words.
Yeah, we actually have a question about that. We'll get to that in a minute. But also, bonus answer: Jackbox games are not technically board games, but they are the board games of the future, and I think that they deserve a spot. Absolutely deserve a spot. Yep. Last question here from Absacold. What is the king of the berries? I admit I didn't know there was a monarchy to this particular type of fruit. But there are a lot of very excellent berries. There's straw, there's rasp, there's black, there's boysen. But I'm a big fan of blueberries. I am generally a blueberry kind of person. But I'm an equal opportunity berry employer. There's no berry that really I don't like. Also, there's crunch. Big fan of crunch.
So my mom works for a strawberry grower here in town. And one time when I was very young, still in a car seat, I locked the doors to my mom's Jeep when she was outside of the Jeep, and then climbed into the back seat and ate a bunch of strawberries. And she just so the keys were in the car. She couldn't get back into the car, and just got to watch me smash strawberries into my face over and over again as I ate them. And I still do that to this day because strawberries are the best. Ice cream, strawberries and chocolate ice cream.
Oh,
Chocolate covered strawberries, so good.
yeah, I agree on strawberries. Although I didn't always think that. I used to think that the texture of strawberries was weird because of all the little seeds on the outside, and so I didn't eat them as a kid. But once I got older and kind of got over that, strawberries are probably my favorite. Again, typically with chocolate, or the way my grandmother would make them was with it was it wasn't sour cream, was it? That doesn't sound right. It was with some dairy product that I can't remember, and brown sugar. It was very, very tasty.
Sour cream and brown sugar is actually good, but I think whipped cream is usually the cream.
It was not whipped cream.
But yeah, you can dip in sour cream and do brown sugar. It works surprisingly well.
Maybe that's what it was then. Yeah, it was something that I remember being like, I didn't expect it to work out, but it was delicious.
All right. And our last quick hit question here. Bodicus, take this one.
All right, Carlos Hernandez. Why do you always make Edelweiss pronounce the difficult words? Make Bodicus do it, literally missing out on great content. And I can feel free to say his name without an accent, which I should be able to do because I live in Southern California. And I took 4 years of Spanish, but beside the point.
It's kind of not beside the point. That's kind of the point.
Look, but whether or not you took Spanish has nothing to do with whether you do an accent or not. I had Spanish class with a person from the UK, and believe me, it doesn't get worse than that. Spanish with a UK accent, it's not.
I mean, I always say I took 4 years of Spanish in high school, and I learned all my letters and all my colors, and that's about the extent of what it took to pass those classes, which is unfortunate. But so the reason that Edelweiss pronounces the difficult words is because it's more of a special thing when I have to pronounce the words and I'm not ready for it, because that's the great content. If I was just doing it every time there was a difficult word, then it wouldn't be great because it would be expected. So when it's unexpected, that's when it's great content.
And Bodicus being unexpectedly hilarious has been a hallmark of this show for years, so don't worry, it'll happen when it happens, but it sounds fun when Edelweiss says it. But don't worry, there will be times where we have Bodicus do things that he feels make him sound silly. You know, like when he tried to pronounce "call to arms isn't that great." I think that came out I think that was pretty hilarious. You know, he was able to get all those syllables. So,
How?
I'd say I'm sorry, but I did it, and I would do it again.
Yeah, you shouldn't be.
I'm really not. All right, so we've got 8 reviews. Can't believe we've got reviews, but we read them out every bonus episode. We're winding down here, leaving 20 minutes to read out these reviews. We got to do a raffle. We got to thank people, and we got to send you all on your way. So let's go. Bodicus, go ahead and take this first one. And there is a link in the show notes on how to leave us a review. There's a link to the Apple Podcast app. You can just click right there and leave the review. Really helps other people find the show.
All right. So Giant Haystacks UK leaves the title "Makes My Brain Get Bigger." Like a puppy who can explain quadratic equations, this show is both delightful and informative. It's the essential podcast if you'd like to get better at Hearthstone. Of course, if you prefer to get worse, you could listen but do it the opposite way, they say. That's the genius of the show. Thanks, Giant Haystacks. Big fan of puppies that can do quadratic equations as long as they're being paid equally to what they deserve to get paid.
Next, we have a review from Lauchi. It's truly amazing, they say. The hosts are super likable, and you can feel their love for the game. Info is always on point and thoughtful. Thanks. Well, thank you, Lauchi. We always appreciate reviews. Helps the show a lot.
And then we have another one from Terev or Terev727. Top quality podcast. This is one of those podcasts you can continue listening to even after you stop playing the game. Oh, thanks, Terev.
We hope you.
That's nice.
Yeah. We hope you find your way back to Hearthstone at some point because it's it's kind of the game we talked about. But glad that you're still liking the content. From JPC Seb, but we have. It's titled Even Better Than Fishy Flyer, so you know this is a good review. I'm not one to usually listen to podcasts with my go-to being Critical Role, if any. However, the moment Hat mentioned Concede in his interview with Rare, and I knew I had to give this a try and don't regret it at all. Not only is the show hysterical and entertaining, it is informative, engaging, and upbeat, a feeling that can be hard to find in the Hearthstone community nowadays. I open up the podcast app every day just in case a new episode has been uploaded. I'm always sad when it ends. Looking forward to the next. Stay awesome. Thank you so much, JPC Seb. You can turn on notifications in that podcast app. It'll pop up and show you. But we're really glad that you're listening, tuning in, and big shout outs to Raren. Super nice fella. Big fan.
And next we have a review from Shiny Pants. Awesome show. As a father of 3 and I work 50 to 60 hour weeks. I'm so sorry. That sounds rough. I always make time for the crew at Concede. Been playing for a little over 3 years and made Legend for the first time last month. The amount of knowledge and skills I've gained from the show, and more importantly, the Discord channel, has been the most instrumental aspect to me improving my game. Love the host Ridiculous Hat, Bodicus, and Edelweiss, my 9-year-old daughter's fave. I miss Appa, of course, but Edelweiss has slid in as a host without the show missing a beat. I cannot stress enough how welcoming and awesome the Concede crew and community is. If you love Hearthstone and are serious about improving your game, then Concede is a must listen and follow. Shiny Pants, thanks so much for the review. Really glad you hit Legend, and shout out to your 9-year-old daughter.
Props. The next generation. We've got a review from ELB. I've been playing Hearthstone for a few years now and really enjoy Concede. My first year at work, my commute was 2 to 4 hours daily in the train. Holy crap, that's awful. Playing Hearthstone on the commute really helped keep my energy positive. Hatbot and Edelweiss do a great job of mixing comedy and gaming expertise into a bite-sized show that's fun to engage with. Keep up the great work, friends. We're glad to be here for you. I think this is the first time anyone has ever described our 2-hour plus show as bite-size, but thank you so much. We are glad to keep you company on your train ride. Yeah, that's not usually how people describe it.
It's a big bite.
Yeah. But hey, for hungry folks.
You could call it probably like a gigabyte, almost.
I'm proud of you.
We need bullet trains so bad.
Yeah, seriously. Why don't you read this next one?
All right. Sephiroth182, one of the best HS casts. I was searching long for a good Hearthstone podcast. Very entertaining and adorable casters. They understand the game and talk without limits. If you want to hear an honest cast, hear this. Greetings from Germany. Thanks so much, Sephiroth. Appreciate that.
One more. Scroll down, Edelweiss.
So, yeah. Last one. All right. Tomes247 says, one of the best Hearthstone podcasts. I've been playing Hearthstone since 2014 and have been listening to this podcast for a few years. It's superb, and the banter between the hosts is excellent, and Edelweiss in particular is a fantastic addition to the show. You will learn a ton about Hearthstone by listening, in addition to a lot of important lessons about resilience and staying positive. The best Hearthstone podcast with multiple hosts out there. Also, hats off to Hat for the superb puns. Thank you, Tomes247, and appreciate the review.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for leaving these positive words. Help other people find the show. Help us feel good about what we do. We're going to keep doing it. And also, shout-outs here to Skizzle in Discord. Sent me a real nice message today about just how much the podcast meant to him as well. And he's at Diamond 2 despite just starting the game in August. So, Skizzle, good luck. Hope you can get to Legend. Well, we know you can. Hope you can this month. Finally, it's our time to do a raffle. Now, as a reminder, you can enter this raffle by either emailing into the show saying you want to be entered totally free, or if you're a $5 or above patron, you are automatically entered. The winner gets an item of their choice from the Concede store. And our winner is Andrew M. Andrew, congratulations. You're our last raffle winner of 2020. We will contact you, and you earned an item of CC swag. And that'll do it for our show. That'll do it for the year. Thank you so much to everyone who wrote in. We have many folks we'd like to thank. Check out our thanks section on the website, concede.com. You can find our contact info, our show notes, and our patron information. You can support our show, patreon.com/coinconcede. Join us every week live by following us on Twitch at twitch.coinconcede.com. Join our community chats in our Discord, discord.coinconcede.com. Go into our email, coinconcede@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at coinconcede. Like, share, and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/coinconcede. If you want some CC swag, head over to our shop at shop.coinconcede.com. Big thanks to our producers, Number Theory, Itinerant Wizard, Tony Estoshi K, Proby1. Gonna give some shout outs here. First, some coin concedes. Blizzard, thank you for being rad. They sent me some amazing sweaters today. Just like Hearthstone holiday ugly Christmas sweaters. They're very warm. Also, big coin concede to Con Before the Storm. They're doing a virtual world of podcasts this year because obviously we can't go to California, and it's not going to be before BlizzCon because there was no BlizzCon. But next Wednesday at 8 o'clock Eastern, I am hosting the panel, which also has Racy from Well Met, and Daring Alkaline from Dr. 3, and Wicked Good from Off Curve, and Storm Rage from Daniel Storm Rage Sheldon from Blizzlet. So it should be a really fun panel. They told us to try and keep it to 90 minutes and also be a year in review for Hearthstone, so we're already trying to figure out how that's going to possibly work. I have my doubts that we can hit 90 minutes, but we'll see what happens. Coin concede to Wash in the Wind for recommending these cool rollerblade casters for my chair. Look, it just is so quiet and moves so cleanly. Changed out the wheels on my chair with rollerblade like casters that just sit down there. It's great. Ben Hearthstone for making his annual Twitter list of favorite podcasts. We were number 1. Thank you, Ben Hearthstone. And hey, Data Reaper was number 3 also. I hear the hosts of that show are quite intelligent and handsome. And going to see to my co-hosts, to Botticus, to Edelweiss, to Appa, and to all the supporters out there. Coin Concede has been the steadiest part of an unsteady year. Without this podcast, I don't know where I would have been. But thank you to both of you for making it something I can look forward to and depend on each week. It's been really important and great, and I think we've done some really good work this year. Who's next?
Yeah, thanks, Hat. I am going to concede to all the listeners over the year. It's been an up and down year in terms of things outside of the show, but the show's been kind of the one shining light throughout the whole year, and really it's all because of our great listeners, our great community. Really can't thank you enough for giving us this stability throughout the course of the year. Really appreciate it, and just thanks so much. Looking forward to what 2021 has to offer in terms of the show. Hopefully can continue the path we've been on, because I think it's been going really well.
Yeah, can't really be said enough. The growth of the show this year and being on the Blizzard launcher has been an amazing ride. Everyone was super welcoming when I joined on. I'm really cynical. I was kind of expecting someone to be like, I don't know, saying something about my voice or stuff, just because you kind of come to expect bad things being a woman in male-dominated spaces, but it's only been positivity that I've been seeing. So yeah, shout out to all you listeners out there. This is so many reviews. It's honestly astounding. So yeah, Happy New Year, everyone.
Yes, the happiest of New Years to all. And the best thing about this next year is it's not 2020. That's my favorite part of 2021 so far, and it hasn't even happened yet. But in the meantime, keep calm, celebrate safely, and if you see us on the ladder or on the battlegrounds, coin concede.
Coin concede.
Coin concede.
We did it.
Very well.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. We're going to go, but glad you were all here. We'll see you next year. No!